Good evening. Evening? I feel like I do this every time. Yeah, evening. And welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. As always, if you want to support the show, you can go to multipleworldproductions.com/pre-orders and pre-order either our Not Our Past Is Not Fine. Mine already came out. We Are Better Than Our Worst Instincts, which comes out in June and is a sequel to Our Past Does Not Define Us. Or you can go and pre-order Echo Delta Part 1, which is a sequel to Echo Alpha, which came out last November, and now coming out this November. Again, multipleworldproductions.com/pre-orders, and the link will be also in the description. So, what are we here to discuss? We're here to discuss Tales of the Jedi, because I was working at a desk all day, and therefore could watch the entire run of the show while I was at work. Because it's a short show. That's the other thing, too, that we have to take into consideration, is that it's not a particularly long time commitment, because it's 6 episodes that are 15 to 20 minutes each, and then excluding credits and the logo that is, I don't know. I feel like at this point, now that Disney owns Fox, they should just throw the Fox fanfare in front of it, because it's very obvious that's what they're trying to do with this logo, but for whatever reason they're not. Like, whatever. It is what it is. So, what we're looking at is this interesting shift in storytelling. We're looking at the arrival of, the arrival of telling more stories centered around the prequels that aren't just the Clone Wars, which is an interesting and worthwhile endeavor. Because it is, there is a lot that goes into the fall of the Republic, and it's not just the 3 movies that we saw, and it's not just the Clone Wars series either. And this show really dives into that. The first episode about Ahsoka, her origin is kind of interesting, and that's a cool thing to really dive into. That's a great way to start the show out and really set the tone, because it's got this very great, it's a great soundtrack, and it feels a lot like Avatar. My only concern with this episode is that this episode would have felt more impactful if we hadn't already seen this with Grogu and, on The Mandalorian. I've already seen this origin story for someone with the Force. And it's the same thing also this happens with Ezra. Ezra Bridger has a similar thing with the wolves. And it's, I don't need to see this again. I think seeing it again is a waste of, time, for lack of a better word. So, it's cool, though, and it does shed a little light on her. The next pod of 3 episodes, is among some of the best storytelling in Star Wars. And if you like these 3 episodes, go pick up Dooku Jedi Lost. It's an audio adventure that you can pick up on Audible or audiobooks.com probably, or wherever you get your audiobooks. When I listened to it the first time, I listened to it via the library. I think it's Libby is the app that you can listen to audiobooks you can take out from your library with your library card. And so it's not just Audible, because I know you can't do that for Audible exclusives like the Sandman or the Stan Lee Alliances series. But it's interesting. And it tells the story of what went into Dooku's decision to leave the Order and go back to Sereno. This takes the view of, that story tells about what it was in his personal life and what it was about him that set him apart from other Jedi, being that he had the attachment to family that other Jedi don't have. Specifically, they're not allowed to have. And he's got that attachment, and he is, dealing with the attachment. That is that's a great story to tell. Then you get to this, which is, well, that's one thing, but what happened to make him be willing to give up the ideology of the Jedi too? what happened. And we get into two stories that get into what Dooku is dealing with when he's seeing injustice and he just wants to be a good person. Whereas, we want to do the right thing for the people. So he's trying to do the right thing for the people in these two stories. The first one with a very young Qui-Gon as his Padawan, and then the second one where he and Mace Windu are dispatched to investigate the death of a Jedi Master. And both these stories kind of get into this idea that, he is interceding in ways the Jedi Order doesn't want to, because they don't want to, quote-unquote, play politics. But it's an interesting, it is an interesting look at what causes that. And then we get into, I think, the strongest episode on its own. And I think there's one other episode that I think is stronger. But I think that only works as well if you've seen Clone Wars. The next episode takes place concurrently with episode 1. It takes place during episode 1. And it tells the story of how the clones started. To an extent. Not the entire story, but Dooku going in and deleting Kamino from the records, and using Master Sifo Dyas's codes, and him hearing, because it takes place before and after the Battle of Naboo, where he comes back from Tatooine, Qui-Gon, and he's like, look, we saw a Sith Lord in the deserts of Tatooine, this is not good, we need to handle this. And then later on, you also get we need to, what's it called? We need to discuss, and after that, it's, oh shit, he was right, and now he's dead because we didn't listen to him. And it kind of allows for him to make that full swap and switch to the dark side. And it is a really great way of telling that story. And then after he does everything he's supposed to, and he's despondent, and he goes to because Qui-Gon died, and we see a lot of Yaddle in this episode. He talks to Yaddle, and he talks to her, and we hear how she talks, and I'm like, oh, so Yoda's just an asshole talking that way. Whatever. So he goes off after Qui-Gon died, and Yaddle follows him, and Yaddle follows him to, I think it's Geonosis. Now this just opens up a whole host of other questions, how did they recover her body? Or no, it had to not be Geonosis, it had to be somewhere else. I don't think they say where it is, but whatever it is, how do they recover her body? How do they find out she died fighting Dooku? All of that, I want to know that part of the story, but it doesn't fit in here. So the two of them fight after she sees him talking to Sidious. It's oh, there is a Sith Lord, not just that one, there's another one. Because if you recall, in The Phantom Menace, after Maul died, there's a conversation between, I think, if I remember, it's definitely Mace Windu, but I think it's Mace Windu and Yoda, where it's there are always two, but which one was this, the Master or the Apprentice? And then now Yaddle has found the other one. And she's also found Dooku, and it's well, Dooku's going to be the new apprentice, and Dooku, and Sidious is look, you think you lost your apprentice, I also lost an apprentice in this, I'm not thrilled about this either, this is not how I saw this going. And then Yaddle comes in and is I'm going to put an end to this right here. Dooku and Yaddle fight, Yaddle ends up getting killed, or presumed killed, and he goes back and talks to, Sidious again. Yaddle lifts the thing that Dooku had dropped on her to kill her with the Force, but that exhausts her, and she's don't do this, and he just fucking beheads her. It is just a level of brutality that's unneeded, or not unneeded, but so monstrous that it's oh, he is now fully switched sides at this point. And then we get to the final, two episodes. My personal favorite episode is the next one, where it's Anakin training Ahsoka to dodge the clones. and learn how to not get killed by the clones, and how to dodge them. Because he's like, look, if you can, like, the droids are droids. They're going to follow their programming. They're going to do the same thing every time. The clones can adapt. They can change. If you can outmaneuver the clones, you can outmaneuver anything. And the whole episode is just her practicing and practicing and practicing and seeing how long she can stay standing, practicing against clones without them getting her with a stun blast. And it's like, it's different places each time we cut, and it's like she's just continually doing it. It's like, you lasted 5 minutes that time, you lasted this long this time, and then we get to the end, and it's her and Rex on the battle cruiser after the Battle of Mandalore, and after she has taken the thing out of the inhibitor chip out of Rex's head, and they're about to go into that hangar where all of the troops are, because the plan is going to be, we're going to escape by, we're going to escape this way, we're going to pretend you're a prisoner, we're going to escape this way, as we saw in the finale of the Clone Wars. And it's like, I really hope you remember all that training he says to her. It is such a great episode. I think that's the strongest of them all. And I think the last one is strong too. It's about Ahsoka coming out of retirement after, it's like she goes to Naboo to see the funeral of Padme. She's like, she was my friend, I'd want to be here for her funeral. And, she's like, because that's the thing too, we have to keep in mind, she doesn't know that Anakin has turned into Vader. She doesn't know that at this point. And she can't get that moment to be, and at this point, Obi-Wan is presumed dead. And Anakin is presumed dead. And everyone else she knows is presumed dead. But she can't properly get that chance to mourn them because they're Jedi. And, what's it called? Because they're Jedi, and the Jedi are persona non grata. Kind of like the Henry Cavill of their day. And you have all of these things kind of happening all around her, and there is this big public state funeral happening for Padme, and she's going to go there to get to mourn, to be like, look, this is going to be my chance to kind of express my grief in this way. Maybe I'm reading too far into it, but that's the point of that. She goes there to do that, and then we get to she meets Bail, and Bail Organa gives her a communicator. He's like, look, I think that, you can be of use to us. We have a resistance. We're not happy about this. We want to, resist and undo the Imperial rule. And she's like, I'm not going to want to do that. So she does kind of like Obi-Wan. She goes into hiding. She goes to this planet. She's working on a farm. She saves someone's life with the Force. And I'm like, okay, I've seen all of this before, because this is Fallen Order. This is Obi-Wan on Tatooine. This is Obi-Wan when he's fighting Reva in the second one. And it's like, I've seen all of this. I don't need to really see this again. Because ultimately it's just going to end with, okay, Ahsoka's out of retirement and back working with Bail Organa, because we know where she is when it comes time to do, when it comes time for Rebels to happen. So it's not a completely necessary story. It's kind of just a little extra color where it wasn't necessary, but I'm not super complaining. Like, if the weakest thing is, like, it tells 2 out of the 6, 2 of them are kind of not entirely necessary to have filled in, and what they do fill it in with is stuff we've already seen before, but with other characters. If that's the worst thing you can say about the show, it's a pretty solid show. And I think that it is, like, the animated stuff that they do on Disney Plus continue to be some of the strongest that they do. And I don't remember when The Bad Batch comes back, but I think it's coming back this year with season 2, and I'm looking forward to that greatly. I think that this is better than Visions, because while Visions had a lot of, like, Visions was a lot more visually interesting, because, like, if you've seen the Clone Wars, or you've seen Rebels, or you've seen not Resistance is a different art style, if you've seen those 2 shows, or The Bad Batch, you've kind of seen everything that you're going to see in this show. Like, you've seen the character models, you've seen the character designs, you've seen the planets. You've seen all this stuff before. There's nothing particularly new or unique in there in that regard. But seeing these stories play out, and especially diving into the story of Dooku and developing him more from being a cardboard cutout of a villain into being a full-fledged character with, flaws and a not, like, you can look at him and you can be like, okay, I see why he did this. It's kind of like he's kind of Star Wars' Magneto in that way, where it's like you can take his experience and you can take what he's seen, and then when it comes time for him to make that move and switch sides and go and join Sidious, you're like, this is the wrong thing, but I completely understand why he made this decision. It totally makes sense for who this character is and what this character wants and why he joined the Jedi Order in the first place. It all makes sense. And I think adding that layer to him is a great use of a show like this, especially when you compound it with what they did in Jedi Lost. I may have called it Fallen Order before, but that would be incorrect. If you have not checked it out yet, again, like I said, it is a very short watch. You can get through the entire thing on Disney Plus pretty quickly, with what's it called? With like an hour and a half. I think I did the whole thing in an afternoon at work, and then I went back to listening to a podcast. It is worth watching, because this is the way they should be telling stories within this universe. Is just do small little digging out in various places and see what you can get to. See what you can get to, and I hope they do more of this. And I'm very happy too, because it's like the way it was kind of billed was going to be like a different one about each Jedi, and it's like, it's really not. It's really very specifically Ahsoka and Dooku, and because you have these two characters who are dealing with, and I think that Ahsoka's is less, like, Dooku is more character-y. Ahsoka is origin for a scene, and then, connective tissue between what we knew and what we knew. And I think it's kind of an interesting, like, way to change these characters up. And I think juxtaposing, telling the story the way it is, where it's like, light, and then you have the dark creeping in, and then the darkness takes over, and then you're in the war, and then it's, ending on a note of optimism is an interesting way to tell this story. So if you have not checked it out yet, definitely check it out. It is included with your Disney Plus subscription. Very, very worth your time. But tomorrow morning we have Andor, episode 8. I did not watch that today. Tomorrow afternoon, I think we're going to talk about, or tomorrow evening, we're probably going to talk about the arrival of a villain that's been teased since season 5 on The Flash. A relatively new villain in the DC. Is it still a pantheon if it's a villain? Like an anti-pantheon, an antheon, whatever. It's another a new villain in the DC canon is going to be making their debut on The Flash this season, and with a familiar. I'm gonna keep it nebulous because I don't want to spoil it until we talk about it tomorrow for those who are interested in finding out. But a similar an already known entity will be playing the character, and not the one that probably should be. And we'll talk about that tomorrow over on 30-minute reviews. But we have tomorrow morning definitely Andor, as what's his name says it. Luthen, and then definitely have what's it called after. We will eventually get to Peripheral. I've been busy, but until then, have a great rest of your week.